Okay, so what we're going to be doing today is chapter performance and goal. First, it's more of an update on what we did last year and this year. So as we've been saying it again and again in this conference, chapters are the key. They are very important to our strategy. They are very critical to us. So we will be looking at how well they have performed, and we will be seeing a little bit in detail about their journeys as well and the event's trajectory as well. So let's start. So we have about 43 chapters in USA, out of which 16 are labs, but 27 are active. So out of these, let me do this way. So in 2020 and 2021, during the COVID years, there was a lot going on in all our lives, and we all were going through different feelings. We were all going through different journey. We had no idea what was going on in the world. We were all anxious. We were trying to figure out how to come together and how to fundraise for TCF. Our chapters have performed tremendously well during this time, but at the same time, we were only able to form one new chapter in 2020, which was right before COVID. We had 4 growing chapters, which basically means that their revenue was still growing even during the COVID years. They didn't have any events, but their donor database was growing, their revenue was growing, so that was tremendous. We had 13 constant chapters during 2020 and 2021. The list is already there, so I'm not going to go through them. Their revenue was growing and their activities were stable. So that's why we've shown them as constant. There were 8 chapters, only 8 chapters, which we felt that the activities were limited. They were still growing in terms of revenue, but their team sustainability was an issue. There was not much happening in terms of campaigns and events. And this is only the landscape for 2020 and 2021. The journey seems way different for 2022. And we're going to see that in a minute. We had about 16 chapters that were lapsed. Most of them were our young professional chapters who either changed their jobs, moved states, moved cities. And you know how important it is for the young professionals to meet and have their events. So let me show you the landscape about how it looks like today. So we started the journey right from where we left off. Most of our young professional chapters, as I just said, actually became labs during these 2 years. They were only formed in 2018, so they didn't get the time to mingle. They didn't get the time to actually do much events, do more activities. And COVID came at a time when they were just growing and they were forming their donor database. So they became labs, but since new chapters and involving teens and involving young professionals is at heart of our strategy. We want to bring them back. हम चाहते हैं कि जो भी नए लोग हैं, youngsters especially, वो दोबारा से TCF की force के साथ affiliate हो जाए. इसलिए हमने वहीं से start की अपनी journey. हमने 2 new chapters बनाए हैं. The first one being University of Washington, and the other is Philadelphia Teens Wing. और ये दोनों chapters इस साल बने हैं. They already had an event this year. We've also been able to revive 2 of our last chapters, one of them being Los Angeles Young Professionals. And we have Mariam sitting somewhere right over here. She is the person who helped us do that. So she's the star. And then Georgia is revived now because of Abdullah Uncle's efforts. We all know how good he is. Yes. So in 2022, अभी हम सिर्फ May में हैं, but we have already doubled the number of our growing chapters. We went from 4 to 9. So ये हमारे 9 chapters हैं जिनके revenue increase हो रहे हैं, जिनकी donor database increase हो रही है, and most of them even had a fundraiser. Even haven't had a fundraiser this year. इनके fundraisers mostly होंगे fall में, but the activity has already started, so we're excited for that. We have 11 chapters which are constantly performing well. Their revenue is either growing or consistent over the years. The performance is stable. The activities are stable. They have a team. We only have 5 chapters that need focus now, and this is part of our KPIs this year, actually. We will be working on them. We've already moved half of these need-focused chapters to either growing or constant, and we will be moving the rest by end of this year too, inshallah. Then we have 15 last chapters currently. We've only been able to revive LAYP out of it, and Georgia is on its way too. But this is where we need help from all of you. So there's a list of chapters that are inactive. So if you all know anyone who is in the area, if you have a friend, if you have a family member who would be interested to help us bring these chapters back, we would be really thankful. And you will have this deck so you can go through it. Any connections, we will be really, really helpful. So this is basically the summary of what I just said. We have 2 new and 2 revised chapters in 2022, whereas 15 lapsed chapters. So this basically shows the chapters that were established in the last 5 years. So as I was saying, 2018 was a really good year for us. We formed 5 young professional chapters, and we had done this based on our strategy. We wanted to bring young individuals to the cause. In 2020-2021 में हमारा focus sustainability की तरफ चला गया था instead of growth. So we couldn't actually bring more chapters on board. But जैसे मैंने mention किया, हमने 2022 में वहीं से start किया. And I would like to mention Salman Zafar here because he helped us and the Seattle team helped us bring University of Washington chapter on board. And then we have a Philadelphia Teens Wing chapter now, which is basically जो हमारी Philadelphia की core chapter team है, उनके बच्चे अभी teenagers में पहुंच चुके हैं. So what they did was कि उनकी activities different हैं, obviously crowd different है, उनके events different तरह के होंगे. They're more interested in social media, Zoom, that kind of stuff. So उन्होंने अपने बच्चों का अलग से एक chapter बनवा दिया है, and they're actually kids are bringing in more friends, they're bringing their parents as well, so that's a good thing. जी, जी. Yes. So I would also like to acknowledge all the chapters who have completed their 10 years since last UCC. So these chapters are Austin, Chicago, Dallas, Indianapolis, New Jersey, St. Louis, and Seattle. They have completed a decade with us now. So that's really good. And they're all very involved, mashallah. So let's talk about everyone's favorite thing now, the revenue and expenses. So as Salman Saab already mentioned in his slides, chapters actually contributed to 62% of our revenue last year, as compared to 38%, which came through non-chapters. This 62% includes all the chapter community funds, as well as the individual projects. So this is basically a trajectory of how our chapters have been contributing over the years. They have been consistent. Mostly our chapters contribution has been from 60 to 70%. Even during the COVID years, they were able to achieve that. We didn't see a tip anywhere in the numbers. The only tip that we saw was in the expenses. Our expenses had gone down because we weren't having physical events. But even with physical events, both our team and the chapters have been doing really, really well. बहुत diligently expenses monitor करते हैं. I would like to mention Raymond here. हमारे सर पे एक डंडा होता था हर time Raymond का कि expenses कम होने चाहिए, budget के अंदर रहने चाहिए. And now Saima is actually doing the same thing with us. So हम बहुत diligently expenses follow करते हैं. And the chapters do the same thing. अगर हम 2021 की बात करें तो हमारी expense to revenue ratio was only 4.01%, which was great for us. This graph is a bit complicated. It shows all the chapters revenue as compared to the expenses. So I wouldn't go into the detail of this, but you all have a performance card in front of you. You all have your personal chapter revenues, your personal chapter expenses, and the expense to revenue ratio. Our top performing chapters were 26, 25, 6, 28, and 15. You all know who you are. You are our stars. This basically shows, sorry if I'm going too fast, let me know. This basically shows the 2020 to 2021 revenue change for chapters. This is not in terms of absolute numbers. This basically shows कि last year से इस year तक, so for example 2020 से 2021 तक chapters ने अपने revenue में कितना change लाया. And you can see even the most of our chapters didn't even have a physical event in 2021. Most of them were either able to sustain their revenue or they were actually performing really well. Their revenue increased. Then comes the fun part, which is the events. Our event number was increasing. We were doing 60 to 70 plus events till 2019. However, in 2020, we see a dip. In 2021, we again saw a dip, but then in 2021, now we are going back to physical events. We have had 25 events year to date, and we are looking for another 26 in the next half. So we will be doing more than 50 plus events. And these are only the events that are already planned. We have done the contracts. So these are the ones that are already planned. There's some that are tentative right now, and most probably if we will be presenting this again at year end, we will be again crossing 60 or 70 number of events. This shows the number of guests that we had at our events. The number of guests that we were having before COVID was around 9,000 on average. But in COVID, we had a dip because, as you all know, our events went down. We are going back to that number. We are in May only, and we've already had 3,500 guests. So, and this does not include all our big annual galas. They are happening in the fall. So guest count भी इंशाल्लाह हमारा ऊपर जाएगा, new donors आएंगे, so we will be seeing an increase in revenue. This is our events calendar for 2021, and I'll be showing my 2022 events calendar separately as well. So the goals and budget for 2022 now. हमने past की बात कर ली है, अब जरा देखते हैं कि हम year to date कहाँ से रहे हैं. हमारा इस दफा chapters का revenue का budget है $7 million, and May तक we are already at 3.9 million, which means that 50% has already been achieved by our chapters. Expenses हमारे जो chapters के हैं वो $733,000 हैं. उसमें से अभी तक आपको दिख रहा होगा कि expenses बहुत कम हुए हैं, around 150,000. But again, हमारे एक्सपेंसेस कम इसलिए हुए हैं क्योंकि हमारे फॉल के गेलाज अभी तक नहीं आए. हम बहुत सारा काम डिपॉजिट्स पे चला रहे हैं अभी तक सिर्फ. तो जब वो होंगे so हमारे जितने बड़े गेलाज हैं, Seattle, DC, Austin, Boston, all of them haven't happened yet. So fall में जरा ऊपर जाएंगे expenses, but as Salman साहब said, हम सब खर्च नहीं करेंगे, हम बचा लेते हैं हर साल कुछ ना कुछ. फिर अगर हम 2022 के revenue expenses देखें, तो अभी तक हमारी expense to revenue ratio is 3.7%. Again, this is the same graph. This shows the revenue. This shows the expense to revenue ratio. और आप लोगों के पास जो आप लोगों के performance cards पड़े हैं हर chapter के, every chapter leader has it. उसमें ये सब information बहुत detail में mention है. But if you guys have any questions, do let us know. और आप लोगों को budget emails भी आई होंगी, उसमें भी ये सब information बहुत detail में mention है. This is basically a screenshot of how everything looks in the performance cards, and that's about it. Thank you.